What's going on, guys? Zuko back with another Dragonflight video. I'm getting hammered by this guy. I suppose hammered's the wrong term, but there you go. I hope you guys are doing very well. I wanted to bring a video to you about an enhancement build that focuses almost entirely on Stormstrike and does not include the Gamba stuff. So you do not run deeply rooted elements with this build. This is like essentially an OG Stormstrike build that includes some talents that are going to help you incorporate the tier set bonus, because the tier set bonus, of course, is not really conducive with the Gamba build, because you have to take Primordial Wave in order to make that build work. So you'd have to like get rid of this stuff in the middle here, right, to go down the Gamba route. And you need to take Legacy of the Frost Switch, so then you have to get rid of like something in the middle here that you'd rather not get rid of. So what I wanted to try was just a build that focused on resetting Stormstrike and having Stormstrike become basically the conduit to pump the rest of our damage in our kit. And let me explain to you how that works. Stormstrike itself does not end up doing a significant amount of damage. If you look at the dungeon that I just did overall, Stormstrike was 6% of my damage. It's okay. It's certainly not my top damage. If you're doing a Stormstrike build, you would think it would be your top damage. That's not what happens. Stormstrike is the conduit. It is the thing that does... It enables the rest of your build. It does everything else for you. And your build kind of lives or dies by the amount of times that you can hit Stormstrike, not because of the damage it does, but because of what else it's doing for you. So what else does it do? Well, first and foremost, it's going to build Maelstrom weapon stacks for you. And every single time you build a Maelstrom weapon stack, you're going to reduce the cooldown of your Feral Spirits, right? Whenever you, by 2 seconds, right? So that's really, really good. It is the highest chance to build. You can obviously get it to trigger twice with Storm Flurry, and it'll reduce the cooldown of Feral Spirits. That's going to get you to be able to cast Feral Spirits more often, which will increase your Alpha Wolf damage, which we can see here was actually pretty decent. My Spirit Wolf was 8.4% of my damage. Alpha Wolf's 4.1%, right? So the uptime on your wolves, that's what your Stormstrike is enabling. Cooling down your Feral Spirits also allows you to press Primordial Wave more often, because every time you... summon a Feral Spirit, it reduces the cooldown of Primordial Wave by 7 seconds. So you get 14 seconds off every single time you cast your wolves. Every single time you're casting Primordial Wave, you're going to spread it around and get an absolutely huge detonation of your Lightning Bolt, and it's going to cleave everything and do crazy damage, right? Which is why our Lightning Bolt is so high. So Stormstrike is enabling that by cooling down your wolves. Your Stormstrike also will trigger your Wind Fury attack, of course. Your Wind Fury attack ends up doing even more damage than Stormstrike itself, but Stormstrike is like one of the best conduits for that. It also is proccing your Tempest Strike and your Storm Blast. Those are two talents that are really important to take in this build. So Tempest Strike says your Stormstrike, Ice Crash, Lava Lash have a 100% chance to discharge electricity. And you can see how much damage that ends up doing. Storm Blast is down here. So Tempest Strikes plus Storm Blast put together is 7.5% of our damage. Every time we hit Stormstrike, we're basically getting one of these procs, as long as we're getting the reset on Storm Blast. But you know what I'm saying. You're always getting the Tempest Strike proc, and you're almost always getting the Storm Blast proc. So if we include those two procs inside of the Stormstrike damage itself, it ends up being like 12 to 13% of our damage, if you think about it that way. So when you're running this build, it might feel like Stormstrike isn't a button that you should be pressing, because you might get to the end of the dungeon and look at your details and go, hey, I really shouldn't have been pressing Stormstrike because, look, it doesn't do any damage. That's not the point of this ability. I pressed it 378 times, and it only did this much damage, but it's doing all this other stuff. It's cooling down your wolves. It's getting you Primordial Wave back. It's proccing Tempest Strikes and Storm Blast. It's also contributing to Crash Lightning damage. Every time you press Crash Lightning, of course, you're going to be, you're going to be electrocuting enemies in front of you, and then the next time that you press your Stormstrike, it's going to proc... Oh, it's down here in enhancement. It's going to hit all enemies in front of you as well, right? Stormstrike, Ice Strike, and Lava Lash also deal 9,700 nature damage to all targets in front of you. So this build is all about pressing Stormstrike. It's all about resetting Stormstrike with Legacy of the Frost Switch. It's not because Stormstrike does a crazy amount of damage. It's because of what else it's doing for you. It's enabling the rest of your build to shine. And it really does shine. I thought it was pretty good. This is the talent tree that you're going to be looking at. You need to pick up Molten Assault so that you can spread your Flame Shocks around for your big detonation when you press Primordial Wave, when you press that Lightning Bolt. Okay, you absolutely need Tempest Strike and Storm's Wrath for the reason I showed you before. You have a couple of Crash Lightning buffs here, which is really good. We could take Converging Storms, but again, this just buffs the damage of Stormstrike, which is not what we're really about. It's about what else it's doing. And then the big components down here, this middle section is so critical. The one talent you could absolutely take instead is Elemental Spirits instead of taking Alpha Wolf. I just wanted to experiment with Alpha Wolf and see what it was able to do for me. It's okay. 4.1% more like splash AoE damage is pretty good from Alpha Wolf, but you could take Elemental Spirits and just hope to get a Lightning Dog. And if you do, then your nature damage is going to be increased. And mark my words, nature damage will be your highest damage. 20%, 32.5%. 45% basically nature damage right there. And then we get on Flame Shock counts as nature damage, right? So we're at 47, 48%. Tempest Strikes and Storm Blast, that's another 7%. We're at 52, 53%. And then Lava Lash is fire damage. But about 52, 53% of your damage is nature damage, okay? So having this Elemental Spirits, where you're getting potentially a Lightning Dog that'll buff your nature damage, that could be really good. And of course, the Primordial Wave Dog that you get always buffs your nature damage. So that's the one talent you could make, guys. The change you can make. The rest of the tree should stay the same. If you want to dabble with Elemental Assault, by all means, go do it. It's a good button to be pressing as well. Let's look at the dungeon for a little bit. Here's the opening pack. This is 6 targets. So again, we're getting basically maximum value on our Flame Shock Primordial Wave Lightning Bolt detonation. Watch my damage here. We're doing no damage right now, and then boom, we're right up there, right with the kids. Where we get, I think we get up to 500k on this pack, which is pretty good. Again, when you're in AoE damage, it's all about Crash Lightning. It's all about pressing Crash Lightning. You see, we peaked at 500k there. We're hovering 500k right now. Crash Lightning, and then your Storm Strike, which procs Crash Lightning damage. That is huge in an AoE pack. That is what you're looking for. You need to be pressing Crash Lightning and then pressing Storm Strike to make sure that you're splashing enemies with that damage. That's going to be really, really critical there. So that's the opening pack. There's another one. He does this next pack here as well. I get a really slow start on this. I don't know what I was doing. My fingers weren't working, but we got our Primordial Wave going, and boom, we get our Chain Lightning, Crash Lightning. The cool thing about this build compared to the Gamba build is that there is no more Gamba, right? You're not, you don't have to worry about proccing Ascendance at all and taking advantage of that proc. All you're doing is going Storm Strike, Crash Lightning, Chain Lightning, Storm Strike, Crash Lightning, Chain Lightning. You're just resetting Storm Strike, and you're getting all the procs because of that. So it's kind of nice that you don't have to rely on the Gamba in the sense that you might get a bad proc. That happens to me all the time. I'll get a proc at the very, very end of a fight where I do basically no damage, and that's kind of frustrating. Also, if you take the Gamba talents right now with the talent tree, you cannot take all of the Spirit Wolf stuff. So you're not going to get big cooldown reduction on your Feral Spirits, which means you're not going to get cooldown reduction on Primordial Wave. And again, every Enhancement Shaman build right now really just relies on Primordial Wave. You have to just have that up as much as possible, and cooling down your dogs a whole bunch allows you to reset the cooldown on Primordial Wave really, really easily. So I think that's a really important thing just to note, is that unfortunately right now the Gamba build I think is in a really tough spot because you have to take the Primordial Wave talents. It just is what it is, and I kind of wish it wasn't that way, but that's just the way it is. There's so much power inside of that Primordial Wave button that you just have to utilize it, or else you're wasting all that damage. But yeah, the rotations are quite simple. Occasionally on single target, you're going to want to press Lava Burst, because again, we don't run like Thorum's Invocation. We don't have anything down that Gamba line. So we're not buffing our Lightning Bolts. We're not buffing our Chain Lightning at all. They don't have a chance to reset, right? They just have a chance. They're just going to do their damage. So occasionally it's okay to use Lava Burst on single targets. Again, Lava Burst is guaranteed to trigger Flurry. You can see the Flurry buff up here right now. That's because I just got a crit off of Lava Burst. Lava Burst is guaranteed to crit if you're hitting an enemy that has Flame Shock on them. So it's a good thing. Get in the habit of pressing Lava Burst if you're on single target. Basically, that's the best time to do it, whenever Lava Burst is off cooldown. Here's another big AoE pull. We already started this pull before, so the numbers aren't going to look super big because the timer on this pull started like 10 seconds ago when we pulled the first mob, but it doesn't matter. We're still doing lots of damage. The nice thing about this build, it does really, really good, like, uncapped AoE damage. Like, the bigger the pack is, the more damage you will do. Because Crash Lightning just hits everything in front of you. It is reduced beyond 5, but it hits everything in front of you. And then your Stormstrike that splashes afterwards also hits everything in front of you. So, really, really big damage on big AoE packs. The bigger, the better. The one thing you have to think about when you're in single target, when you're fighting bosses like this, you have to be careful about your resources. You have to be careful about when you're using Primordial Wave, and you have to make sure that you're all out of Maelstrom weapon stacks before you press that Primordial Wave. I'll show you it on a different boss fight here in a minute because this one does have an additional target. Anytime there's an additional target, Enhancement Shaman is insane because Crash Lightning, getting the additional splash from Stormstrike off of Crash Lightning, that requires 2 targets or more. If you have 2 targets, you're good to go. If you only have 1, unfortunately, you're not going to get that additional splash damage. But on this fight, we, of course, have 2. So it's really, really helpful that way. As soon as I press Crash Lightning... Oh, yeah, he dies. I forgot about this. We got to go to the next one. He dies. I don't know why the tank just got clawed to death there. I'll just go halfway through this fight. Something like that. As soon as you have 2 targets like this, you want to press Crash Lightning so that you can give yourself this buff in the top corner here. That 10-second buff, that means that my Stormstrike, my Lava Lash, and my Ice Strike, if I had it, would all be splashing. Lava Lash is an important part of this build as well. It's essentially a filler button, but it does proc obviously the Crash Lightning buff, and it's going to proc your Electrified Shocks as well. What's it called again? Did I say it right? This one here. It's going to proc your Tempest Strike. So Lava Lash is definitely worth pressing. It's mostly there to spread your Flame Shocks. That's almost entirely what it's for because you have Molten Assault. So in an AoE pack, that's what Lava Lash is for. But you should definitely use it in an AoE, even on a single target pack. It'll get those extra procs for you, and it will keep your Flame Shock on your enemy, which is good. Flame Shock does a lot of damage over the course of the dungeon. I think it ended up doing 6 or 7% of my damage overall. This is a pretty big pull here. He pulls everything in with chains. There we go. And then I'm off to the races here. Again, this is a big pack. This is perfect for Crash Lightning. So you want to just go Crash Lightning, Chain Lightning, if you can. Crash Lightning. You don't want to ignore Stormstrike. Definitely press Stormstrike because it gives you the splash as well. But you want to fit as many Crash Lightnings into this as possible because that's what's going to do the most damage for you. Crash Lightning is the big AoE button that you're pressing. And again, the more the merrier. You can see we're doing 416k by the end of this pull. Pretty good. It's not bad. The damage is not bad at all. You are never, as is the case with almost every Enhancement Shaman build, you are basically never going to like peak at like 1,000,000 damage on a pack. Okay, that's not going to happen. But you are always going to have between 200 and like 500k DPS depending how well you play and depending on how many mobs are in front of you. You can get from like 200, 250k DPS to 500k DPS. That's always what you're going to be getting because that's just what the build does. There's no cooldowns here. The only real cooldown combo is like Doom Winds plus Sundering. That's kind of the only real combo because when you press Doom Winds and then Sundering, it procs an enormous amount of Wind Fury weapons. So you want to make sure you do that combo. But the rest of the time, you're just summoning your wolves on cooldown. You're pressing Primordial Wave on cooldown as long as you can get a really good amount of targets hit. You want to make sure you're doing that, and that's it. You're just cycling between the two. So, again, we settled at about 300k there. We had almost 400k in the last pack. On a really big pack, we can get up to 500k. It's good damage. It's good. You're never going to get 800, 900, a million damage per second. Probably not, but you'll always be hovering around this really good mark. So over the course of time, it's like we're like the slow turtle, that always wins the race. It's that kind of thing. Other specs, like a BM Hunter, they're like rabbits. They just go shooting up, and they're at the top of the DPS, and then they fumble around, and they run in circles, and they can't figure out what they're doing or whatever, and then they end up down where we are at the very end, and we catch up to them over time. That's kind of how this ends up going. This is a perfect example of that. The Marksman Hunter, is way out in front. He's at 240k. I'm just going to speed this up. Watch him. He's at 200k. We're at 145, 190, 180. We're at 145, 140, 148. He's at 160 now. We're at 150. He's at 152. We're at 147. Now we're at 150, and he's at 142. So he went bing, ding, and then he slowly kind of worked his way down, and we just went up like this, and then we just stayed, and we just waited for him to get back down here, right? And at the end of the fight, we're actually in first place on the damage. So that's what this kind of build can do, as long as you're managing your resources correctly. Again, on single target, it's really critical that you make sure you use your Primordial Wave at the right time. You don't want to, like, have 10 Maelstrom stacks ready to go and then press Primordial Wave. That is such a bad thing to do. You have to get rid of all your Maelstrom weapon stacks first, then press Primordial Wave, because it's going to give you 10 Maelstrom weapon stacks right away again. So make sure that you spend them all first. It is so critical that you do that. Otherwise, you've wasted an enormous amount of damage. It might not seem like a lot of damage, but you will have wasted a crazy amount of damage, okay? Here's this boss fight. This boss fight, we get to cheat a little bit because we have multiple targets, okay? He pulled this way too early, so I don't even get off to a good start. But here I can Primordial Wave and I can Flame Shot. I can hit 3 targets here. And then we get a whole bunch of damage. We get a whole bunch of haste from that as well. So we're working on our totem, but we can also help work on other people's totems. I'm going to Flame Shock over here, Primordial Wave, Flame Shock this third one, and boom! Triple Lightning Bolt, there we go. And we get a bunch of haste again, back to work on our totem. And then I go help out this last totem right before the transition. Now we're into pure single target, right? So again, I have Primordial Wave coming off cooldown, okay? Primordial Wave's coming back. But I need to make sure that I spend... I didn't have any Maelstrom weapon stacks. I spent them first. Right? So really quickly here. You can see I have a Lightning Bolt ready to go right now. I have enough Maelstrom weapon stacks, so I spend that. Right now I spend it. Then I press my Primordial Wave plus Wolves. I actually did it in the wrong order there, which was really, really bad. Then I go Doom Winds into Sundering, which isn't as big on single target. You just want Doom Winds for Stormstrike mostly. It'll keep proccing Windfree weapon. And then we're off to the races. So yeah, single target can get a little bit dicey if you do not manage your resources correctly. You can see Primordial Wave is coming back off cooldown again. I'm about to press Stormstrike here. I want to dump my Maelstrom weapon. I dumped it right now. I just pressed a Lightning Bolt. Now I'm going to Primordial Wave, and I get another Lightning Bolt right after. That's how single target works. Make sure you're doing that, okay? Or else you're going to lose a tremendous amount of damage on single target. There we go, 142. Let's go to the last boss fight. This is Yazma. The priest ends up dying on the hill, and he ends up walking all the way back instead of getting rezzed. Don't be like that. If you die on this stairwell in an embarrassing fashion like he just did right there, just wait. Somebody will res you. It's faster to get rezzed. Like, way faster. Okay? He comes back. We just wasted 30 seconds there, letting him walk back. We have Lust. We have everything. Primordial Wave first. Primordial Wave plus dogs. Get your dogs out. Then press your Lightning Bolt. Lightning Bolt. And boom, we're off to the races. You want all 3 dogs out because the Lightning Dog, you get a Lightning Dog from your Primordial Wave, which is going to buff your nature damage. So don't press that Lightning Bolt until you get that Lightning Doggo out. And again, I do need to experiment with this with Elemental Spirits. I suspect Elemental Spirits is the better talent to take on the capstone node at the bottom there. So, I was just trying Alpha Wolf to see how well it did on AoE, because it gives you that extra AoE proc, which is really, really nice. But I think Elemental Spirits is probably better. Even if you got double Ice Dog occasionally, that would be really horrible, but you're cooling down your wolves so quickly that it doesn't really matter. Okay, it's not really a big deal. Primordial Wave plus dogs into a Lightning Bolt. Now we have to run away. Actually, I'm holding it. I held it here. This is kind of a cool way you can cheese this. I press Primordial Wave. You can see I have the buff up here. I have not spent it yet. I'm about to spend it on all these ads. Watch this. Flame Shock plus Lava Lash. Boom. Now they all have Flame Shock on them. I still have my Primordial Wave buff. Watch this detonation. Watch my damage. Boom. I went from 159 to 176. And that's a bit of a cheese. I understand that. The ads do need to die. It's not a total cheese. But the bigger reason I did this is because now I have 50% more haste, or like 44% more haste, instead of just the 20% haste that I would have got from single target. That's the big part of that. So that's something that you can always do on fights like this. Try to cheese some of that as much as you can to make sure that you're giving yourself a big advantage so you can do as much damage as possible. That's really what you're looking for. Use my Lightning Bolt, press Primordial Wave, press my doggos, then press my Lightning Bolt. There's that Lightning Dog right there, buffing my damage. And there you go. The rest of the fight is pretty simple. We're doing about 160k, 154 by the end here. I think we settle at 150k. I'm not really sure. We have to back up here at the very end. And there you go. That's the entire dungeon. We can look at the numbers overall. 205k overall. Let's look at it here. Here's what it looks like. Lightning bolts are top damage, then chain lightning, then crash lightning again. That second component of crash lightning is your Stormstrike splashing damage, your lava lash splashing damage, okay? That's those two components right there. Wind Fury weapon, really huge. Remember to always combine Doom Winds first, then into a big Sundering on as many targets as you can hit. It will do a tremendous amount of Wind Fury weapon damage. It's not even about the Sundering damage itself. It's about the Wind Fury weapon damage. That's what it's there for. There's my Alpha Wolf. Once again, Alpha Wolf did about 4.1%. Probably not as good as taking Elemental Spirits. I would highly recommend you guys take that talent. Just give it a shot. And then there's Stormstrike, Flame Shock, Tempest Strike, Storm Blast, yada, yada. So remember, with this build, it's not about the Stormstrike itself. It will do a decent amount of damage, but really what's going to do the most amount of damage is all of the procs that you're getting off of it. Things like Tempest Strike, Storm Blast, all of the cooldown reduction you're getting out of it on your Feral Spirits, which means you can have higher uptime on your Alpha Wolf procs. You can have higher uptime on Elemental Spirit Wolves if you take those, okay? And then the final piece is the Crash Lightning, of course, that you're able to splash on enemies in front of you every time you Storm Strike. And again, also the Primordial Wave. Cooling down your wolves is going to cool down Primordial Wave. That's going to get you more big lightning bolt chunks and a bunch of haste to go along with it. It's very good. The build is actually pretty good. It does not rely on any Gamba. There's no gambling here at all. There's no trying to dig for procs. You're just doing straight damage. And like we saw, some other specs, they're going to go really high and then they're going to come down. Don't worry about it. Just keep doing your thing. And I promise you, it'll even out in the end and you'll be doing a ton of damage just like everybody else is, okay? Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I had a couple people suggest this build to me, so thank you to you guys who suggested it in the comments in another video. And I'm going to keep exploring different builds. I'm going to keep having fun with this one. I'm going to try it with Elemental Spirits and see how much better it is. But let me know if you guys have tried this build in the comments down below. Let me know anything you want. Check out the Discord and check me out on Twitch. Twitch.tv/ZukoVibes. Come check me out. I'm streaming every single night. I got my schedule on there, so go check it out as well. Thank you guys so much again for watching. Love you all. I will see you in the next one.